Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Charles Tulip, and today I wanted to share another little speed build I did. So this speed build is actually a shell challenge, and the shell was uploaded by englishxnii on the gallery, and it was uploaded with the hashtag SimlishFireShell. She also goes by SimlishGal on Twitch, and I will put all of that in the description below so you guys can also try this shell challenge or check out the other entries. So I thought that after Pair Lives came out, I didn't think I would be building in The Sims 4 anymore. But lately I have been obsessed with doing these shell challenges. I think I did 3 shell challenges just in the last week. So this one I recorded, and I thought this was quite a fun one. The shell was a little bit challenging because it is so small and oddly shaped. But that's true for a lot of them. That's true for a lot of the shells that you'll find. So it was really fun. And here I actually wanted to turn this shell into a little tiny art museum. So you can see me here. I'm trying to figure out to get these platforms underneath the building. I wanted the roof and the platform that it's sitting on to be the same shape. So I had a little trouble with this, mostly because the platform tool that has the curve on it is a different curve than the one I had put on the roof. So you can see me actually using the room tool to get that platform down there. And then, of course, I had to rebuild the shell around that point. I then found out that you cannot place the smaller curved room on top of the medium-sized curved room for whatever reason. So I went back to placing down the small curve, and I actually had to change the roof as well to match that. So I ended up changing the roof back to the small curve room as well, just to get those two to match, because that was the only room I could, or the only platform I could fit on the one below and still have the same shape shell there. So it took me a little while to figure that out. I think at this point I am rebuilding the shell once again. And then I'm going to finally get this platform on here. Put that curve back in the wall. And at this point, I did delete the roof so that I could build the roof with the smaller curve there. So it was not until this point that I figured out this was the only way I could really get the look I wanted. And of course, I had to delete all those walls and the roof that it created there. I raised the platform up again, so there's a little bit of a thickness on the roof. And then finally, I will go back in here and place the small platform around the building, the small curve. So yeah, it was quite a bit of figuring out, quite a bit of playing around with it to get this figured out. And every time I would place the room as the platform, it would delete the room that was there. So, you know, that was a little bit, I had to redo it over and over again several times. I also saw a little bit of a glitch when the platform and the roof were actually the same size. There was a little bit of a glitch on the corner where it didn't quite look round. So for that reason, I made the roof slightly larger than the platform below. And later I decided I didn't like how that looked, so I actually did end up making them the same size and just kind of ignored the glitch that occurred there. So now I'm getting a front door for the art museum. And the door I just pulled out, I actually really like that door. The problem is there are no windows that match with that door, the one that has sort of the octagons or hexagons all over it. There's no windows that match that door very well, so I didn't end up going with that one. What I did here is I chose a little bit more of a solid door, solid metal door, and then I went with the glass walls all the way around. So that way it gives the building kind of a modern look. And I thought, with the glass walls, we didn't necessarily need to have a glass door on the front as well. I did leave a few of the walls as solid concrete or plaster, stucco, whatever you want to consider it. I think technically it's a concrete. And so I left a few walls with that solid concrete on it, rather than making the whole thing glass. Now I'm also picking out a floor for the interior. I like this one. I think this was also a white concrete floor in here. And just getting a few lights in there. I also went with this wallpaper that kind of glows. This one's actually from the Spa Day pack. And I thought that was kind of a cool look, and it required me not to have quite as much lighting on the art and whatnot in the museum. So now I'm just checking out the difference between the museum and the art center. I wanted to see which one had less requirements actually to build, and that turned out to be the museum. So I did make this a museum rather than an art center in the game. That's the lot type. And now I am picking out a bunch of statues for the sculpture garden that is going to be in the back. So I kind of just went through the sculpture category, scrolled all the way through, and picked out the statues that I like, the ones that I thought would look good together, and I made them different sizes depending on what I wanted for that one, for that statue. Now, I was actually looking for a specific statue in here, and the reason I opened this menu was to find a statue to go in the very corner, in the very top of the shell, where there's just that one square unit. I wanted a specific statue to go in there, and I knew this statue existed because I had used it in a previous build, and I actually had seen it in that previous build that I did. So I was looking for the same statue as I put in that other house, but I could not find it. I went through the clutter category, I went through the miscellaneous category, I was looking and looking, scrolling up and down. In the miscellaneous category, I did find a couple more statues that I wanted to put, or sculptures that I wanted to put inside the museum. So I placed those as well. And here I go back to the sculpture category, looking for that one sculpture that I wanted to complete the room there. The reason I like that sculpture is because it actually has a square base on it. So I wanted that to fit inside that little square. And there it is. That is the statue I was looking for. And I placed that in that little nook there. I think it looks wonderful. Now I'm putting a few walls up inside the shell in order to hang some paintings. The museum does require that you have 10 wall hangings and I think 5 statues. So I had plenty of statues, but I needed to get a certain number of wall hangings in the museum in order for it to count as a museum in the game. So I just placed a few lights. I made it nighttime in build mode to place a few lights there. And now I'm picking out some paintings to go on the walls. So I kind of liked these paintings that I picked out. I went with this more colorful one on the back side there. On the front, I kind of wanted the red and the black. And then I also decided to move this sculpture inside the building. I thought that would look nice right in the entryway. Originally, I was planning to put sort of a reception desk there, but I thought this shell is just really not big enough to hold a reception desk. So I ended up putting a sculpture right in the front. And you can see here I actually added a few more walls, 2 more walls to the art gallery portion of the museum. Because, like I said, I believe the museum needs 10 wall hangings. Since I checked that requirement, I only had 4. I need to add 6 more paintings up here. So I added a couple more walls in order to hang those. And I'm just checking what it looks like at nighttime again. It looks good to me. So I'm putting the staircase now on the back. I realized I did not place that originally. And I got this little outdoor bathroom unit, whatever you want to call it. I also needed to place a sink next to it in order to fulfill the requirements. The bathroom counted as a toilet, but not as a sink. So I just made it look like there was a little hand washing station right outside the bathroom, which I think came out pretty cute. And here I'm actually looking for a wallpaper that matches the siding of that bathroom. I could not find one that was as bright as that bathroom. So I kind of went with one that was close. Um, of course, the paneling is going in a different direction. And then I got this sink that looked the most realistic to me, to kind of have the sink jutting out of the wall. And of course, I needed a trash can as well for the requirements, so I placed that. And then I'm going to start working on the sculpture garden portion of this museum. So I'm grabbing the terrain paint here. I kind of like this one. And I just drew a few spirals around the outdoor space. Then I started placing the sculptures where I wanted them around the paths. And this horse one I kind of liked. I wanted to have a sculpture terminating each path. So sort of at the end of each path, there's a sculpture you can walk up to as if you would go all the way to the end of the path and see that. And then I wanted to do a bit of landscaping here. I don't normally touch these landscaping tools, but I did want to have sort of a raised area around the paths. So I ended up going with this. Just putting a few mounds in here. And then I'm also trying to get the statues not to float. So what I did to fix that is I just smoothed the terrain underneath the statues where they were floating. And then I also painted the areas in between the path with this sort of gray-green grass that was from the outdoor retreat pack. And I think that looked quite nice as well. It gave it a little bit more of a dirt feeling to it rather than having the whole area be bright green grass. Looks like maybe there's some dirt mixed in. So I quite liked how that turned out. And I left a little bit of this bright green grass on the front of the building just so that it will blend in more with the environment around the building, whatever lot you place this on. I believe if you do not paint a certain area of the lot, then it will show through as whatever texture is on the lot that you place it on, if that makes sense. Here, I also wanted to replace the roof with a pebble roof. So I found that pebble flooring and placed that on the roof. I think that helps give the building a little bit more of a neutral tone from the top rather than having it be stark white. And the last requirement I needed for the museum was an easel. So I placed 2 of these easels out here. And I was also trying to get these, find a place for these where they were not floating as well. And so I placed a couple of them on this path in the back. And that is all the requirements for the museum done. So I'm going to finish up the landscaping here with some rocks. The garden was reminding me a little bit of one of those sand gardens where you rake the sand and then you create patterns in it. And I know that's not exactly what's going on here, but I did want to place the rocks to kind of give that feeling. A lot of those times those sand gardens have rocks placed in the middle of the sand, and that's just kind of what it was reminding me of. So I thought the rocks looked good out here. And I went with these red rocks, which I think you could probably go with either the red or the gray rocks, it probably would have looked fine. I started placing these pink flowers as well around to kind of keep with the same tones as the path and the rocks. So I got those out first. Then I wanted to place this fern in here. And I forget what this fern is called. It's just in the base game. I've been using this fern in all of my builds recently. I quite like it. It adds like a little bit of texture to the landscaping where it looks like there might just be leaves growing out of the bushes or, growing out of the ground or what have you. And I think that fern looks quite nice for that. I also got the white hydrangeas in here to add a little bit more color or less color, depending on how you look at it. I thought they complemented the statues nicely since I went white with all the statues. And here I'm checking what the landscaping looks like on the upload picture. I usually do that when I place trees because I want to see if they are blocking too much of the building or how they look in that upload photo. So usually after I place a couple trees, I will check that upload photo. And in this case, I didn't like how the trees looked in the front, so I ended up moving them to the back and I placed a few more trees around the sculpture garden. Anyways, I appreciate you all so much for watching. Thank you, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!